I say this to any musician that's out there. I know that we love each other as musicians, but love the artists and your audience more.
Wow.
Because those are the people that's paying the ticket for the tickets.
Right.
They are the ones that are supporting us.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Musically Hitched. I'm your host, Zach Reynolds Jr. We are here live today in my home state. I'm very happy to be home here at Raleighwood Studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I am here with a great friend and an incredible guest today. We have with us Mr. Kevin Wilson. Kevin, how are you?
I'm great, Zach.
Good to see you, man.
My pleasure, man. I'm
so
honored.
glad you're here, man.
Man, I'm honored. Thank you so much for the call.
Great conversation. So we're here. This is your town, Raleigh, North Carolina. There's not many people in Raleigh that don't know Kevin Wilson, but there's not a lot of people around the world that don't know Kevin Wilson. But you are one good brother, and you are the epitome of Musically Hitched.
Wow.
You fit so well, and I know that today's conversation is really going to encourage a lot of people. So how about we just jump right in?
Oh, sounds good.
So I always like to start with where your musical journey got started. So just take us back to your origin. You're not from North Carolina. I'm gonna let you tell the story, but where did you come from and how did you get Musically Hitched?
Well, I am originally from Long Island, New York. A little town called Amityville, and I'm sure that most people heard of the Amityville horror and whatnot.
I used to live in Brooklyn, so I know about Valley Stream and some of the places out on Long Island, but tell us more.
Yeah, from Amityville, six in our family.
Okay.
4 boys, 2 girls. My father is a pastor and was a pastor, and my mother, she was, the first lady of the church, and so my father had a really small church, and he didn't have musicians. So, of course, what he did was he encouraged our family to become musicians. So it became my oldest brother, Charlie, was his name, Charlie Wilson, ironically.
Really?
Yeah, right. Charlie is my oldest brother, so he started playing guitar. And my brother under him started playing bass guitar. He was playing bass, right? So I thought, man, because most young kids want to hang out with their big brothers.
Yeah, sure.
So they were playing guitar. One was playing guitar, one was playing bass. So I figured in order to be able to hang out with my brothers, I need to learn how to play the guitar or something so I can kind of hang out with them.
Right.
So that's where it started. Honestly, my father was the first one that started playing guitar. Wow. Yeah, my pops, he was a guitar player first, and then my brother picked it up. And then my brother and him, like I said, were playing bass. And so I just decided, I said, well, I'm going to pick up the guitar and start playing guitar. Yeah.
So it started with your dad.
Yeah.
So he never mentioned anything before him in the genes or the bloodline that said, here's where it got started. So Buck started with him and it continued with the boys.
Yeah. He was a big quartet person. He loved quartet music.
Okay.
So there were people in our area that played that he, came up with, and that's how he started with his playing. And then my brother got it from him, and then I got it from my oldest brother.
Okay.
And that's how I got started with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at what age do you remember the age when you started?
I think I was probably like 7.
7 years old.
Yeah, 7. Yeah. Because I think my first playing out with an artist or group per se, I think I was either 9 or 10 years old.
Okay.
I began to start playing with different people around in the New York area.
Wow. So 7 years old.
Yeah.
How long would you say, if you can recall, did you take lessons or did you learn by ear?
No, I didn't take any lessons. It was just people in the neighborhood in our area who played, and I would just watch them and just listen to them play, and would kind of practice and try to emulate what they were doing, so that's where I grabbed it from.
So how long would you say it was from 7 to the time you were comfortable playing? You said you started playing out publicly with groups, etc. at 10. Were you ready around like 9 and you just waited, or did it literally take like 3 years before you're like, okay, I'm going to step out and actually do this for the first time?
Honestly, it wasn't like I went seeking.
Okay.
What happens is, like, you playing at church, if I'm playing at church, and my father would have different groups and stuff because he would promote stuff, right?
Okay.
And he would have different people come to the church. and I would be playing, I guess, for the church service. They didn't call it praise and worship back
Yeah,
then.
right,
It was
right.
just playing for the service,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So people would hear me playing, and they was like, "Wow, that kid could play."
Yeah.
So they asked my dad, said, "Well, can he come in and help us out or whatever?"
Okay.
And that's when I just started, playing with different people.
Yeah. So it was confirmed early by other people. So you knew you were getting good. Your brothers were probably giving you some candid feedback, right? Your dad, I'm sure. But eventually some strangers started saying, "Hey, that kid's got something."
Funny because I never thought that I was that good.
Okay.
My brothers didn't really say that I was that good.
They never do.
They never do. But people would say, "Oh, you got something.
That's good.
let's see if you can, sit in and play with us and see,
Yeah.
And I would be just excited to be able to play with people because I was around it all my life, so
Right.
I just wanted to
Right.
be a part once I started to play.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So are we playing gospel music only at this point? Are you venturing out into other genres? Was that allowed in your household?
It was not.
Okay.
It was.
Okay.
It was not.
Dad was a pastor, right? So
Dad was a Kojic pastor.
Oh wow. Yeah,
So-
yeah. No, not at all.
I'm gonna tell you what we used to do. Dad, he was a brick mason. So when he would get up early in the morning
Mhm.
and he would leave. But when Dad left the house, we would
Ah.
get my sisters, had 45s and whatnot. I'm telling my age.
Yeah,
You know, my sisters we would play the R&B music or whatever. We'd get a chance to hear it when Dad wasn't in. But as soon as we seen Dad coming around that corner, because we lived in a cul-de-sac, we were scrambling to hide it. We gotta. Here come Daddy. Here come Daddy. We
Yeah.
throw everything.
Well, at least you can see him when he turned
Right.
the corner. Right.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
what was some of your? If you, I'm sure you recall, what was some of your favorite artists that you had to sneak and listen to when Dad was gone?
Earth, Wind, and
Oh
Fire,
man.
Brass Construction, Ohio Players, the Isley Brothers.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that I listened to. And it's funny because a lot of those bands had strong guitar players.
Yes, they did.
So
Right.
I would listen to them. Isaac Hayes,
Mm-hmm.
people like that. And there was a band in New York used to call Crown Heights Affair. I don't know if you remember that band.
Crown Heights Affair.
Yeah, there was a band there. They
Okay.
were super hot,
Nice.
and we would listen to them, or I would actually get a chance to go to different places and see them, or we go to the beach because a lot of times at Jones Beach they would have live music,
Okay.
so we would get opportunity to see those kind of bands play.
That's great.
But Dad didn't play that, or he
Yeah.
called it devil's music. We couldn't.
Well, here's the thing. See, Earth, Wind, and Fire said you can't hide love, right?
That's
so,
the truth.
so when you started playing, was your dad able to tell that you were studying other genres? Because it comes out.
I'm gonna tell you what happened. My cousin had a band, and they needed a guitar player
Okay.
for a high school talent show. So he asked me if I could go and play. So I said, okay. I said, but we can't let Daddy know that I'm going out to do this because he would tear my behind up.
Yeah.
So we went out. I was able to sneak out, and it was funny because we won the talent show. But when I got home, Dad had the belt out.
Oh wow.
I was like, what? What did I do? He said, did you know that you were on the news and I seen you up there playing with that band? So the news, the news covered the talent show
Wow.
and showed me on stage.
There you go. Can't hide love.
Can't-
That's it.
He didn't beat me though. He didn't beat me. He was kind of disappointed I was doing it.
Yeah.
But I think that he's seen something in me that
Mhm.
that allowed him to kind of loosen up and say, well, this is probably one day this is what he's going to be doing for a living. So yeah.
Wow. And it happens early. So, I mean, you're a father yourself, so you can see talent and potential in your kids, or you saw it
Yeah.
probably early on, maybe even before they did.
Yeah.
So that's good that he did, and he didn't try to quench
Yeah.
the gift. Because imagine if that had happened, like what we know about you on the musical side anyway,
Right.
wouldn't exist.
Right.
Parents play a really pivotal role
Yeah.
in nurturing and developing gifts. And
Yeah.
that's something that as a father myself, I really, really take that seriously, because you just don't know what you got
Exactly.
on your hands,
Exactly.
And that was a very honest gift. You got it honestly, and it came from him. So I'm sure he knew, you guys were going to take it to another level past where he did. Were you thinking at that time, I think I can do this? Dad might have a hunch now that you got something here, and maybe you could make a go of this. When did it click for you that I think I'm going to be a guitar player for the rest of my life.
Well, honestly, it didn't click until later on. I think I was about to come out of high school
Okay.
because I was playing football, and I had a lot of offers playing football because
Really?
our family was a football family.
So athletics
Oh,
is a big deal in the household as well.
all the boys played football,
Okay.
and everybody did really well. My brother actually he went to Michigan State, and
Wow.
then he got an offer from NFL. My brother under him got offers from different colleges, and we all got offers. So,
Outstanding.
it was a choice between playing football and or the music,
Mm.
and I just had to weigh the two, and eventually it came to the point where the music started to overwhelm because I started to get noticed by different people,
Mm.
and I was actually shocked because one of the people that actually called when I think I was 16 when I received a call from evangelist Shirley Caesar about going on tour with her. And I said at that point, I said, wow, then I may be on to something.
And you're still in New York
Still in New
now.
York.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, still in New York. Because she called my house. It was wild because when you get a phone call back then, it was phones in the house.
That
And
was it. Right.
it was and the phone rang. It was like 2 in the morning. And when somebody call you at 2 in the morning, is death or somebody's in jail.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Right.
you
Right.
know. So my mom picks up the phone because I can kind of hear because the phone rings throughout the house. My mom picks up the phone and she said hello, and I can hear her talking, and she comes to my room and she says, Kevin, you got a phone call. I'm like, who's calling me at 2 in the morning? I said, and she said, is Shirley Caesar on the phone?
No way.
I said, are you serious? She said, no. So I get up and I said, hello. She says, yeah. She says, this is Pastor Shirley Caesar. She said, my nephew, Junior, heard you playing at a concert because we was on a concert. The group I was playing with was on a concert with her.
Unbelievable.
And he got my information. A lot of times musicians exchange
Yeah. Right.
information.
Right.
We call it networking now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so she called me. She says that he says that you're a pretty good guitar player. Do you think you'll be interested in coming out and working with the Caesar singers? And I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
Are you kidding me?
Oh no.
Wow.
Oh no. But I'm still green as a blade of grass. I'm
That's
telling you,
yeah.
I'm so green. I could play, but I really didn't understand about being a musician, a professional musician. So I said yes, absolutely. So she set up the time and everything. I think they were going to be in Connecticut a couple of weeks
Right.
after the phone call, and she said, we'll pick you up at Newark Airport.
Mm-hmm.
And I got on the bus and everything, and I'm sitting there, and my mind is just blown.
And how old are you again?
I'm 16.
16 years
I'm
old.
16 years old, and I'm getting on the bus, and I'm seeing all these people that I've seen on television or I see on records. I see their names on the credits and whatnot, and I'm just scared as I don't know what. And I'm feeling so out of place.
Wow.
So we go to Connecticut. I don't even remember the part of Connecticut we was in, but it was this huge auditorium, and I'm talking about thousands of people there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm standing there with a little red jacket on and a little small bow tie. And
Stage ready.
and listen, and then she starts singing because I had none of her music. I had never rehearsed none of her music. I had albums to go by, so I had to listen to the albums and try to learn the music. And you never, at that point, I couldn't really grasp. I felt like I was hearing the right things, but you can't really grasp it until you really just get in into a rehearsal and find out the ins and outs of what's going on.
Sure.
So we're on stage and I'm playing and I'm thinking I'm doing okay. And she keep looking back, and Shirley Caesar is not bashful about telling you how she feels.
She's not. She's not.
So she looks over and says, "Little boy, what are you doing?" So I'm shaking in my boots. And, we get through the concert. I get back on the bus, and her on the bus, she has her estate all the way at the back of the bus. So she has somebody to tell me, just come back to the back. Pastor Shirley wants to see you. And so I go back there and she says, you're you're a good guitar player, but I don't think you're the one for me right now. She said maybe eventually later you'll be seasoned enough to be able to play um, with artists of my magnitude.
Wow. Okay.
And so she took me back to the airport where she picked me up. My dad picked me up, and I went on back home. But one thing about that whole situation, I didn't get discouraged.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I
How did you respond? Because that is the moment
Yeah,
where for some people, that's it.
that's it.
They hang it up and they say, this is not for me. She just said, you're not for me right now. She didn't even tell you to stop playing.
No, because she said that I had a gift. She said, you have a talent. She said, but it's just not at the level that I needed to be.
Right.
Because she had like Chris Johnson out of Chicago, which is an amazing guitar player, really good friend of mine now.
Great.
And then another guy by the name of Ron Meadows was another guitar player that worked with her, and different ones. And these guys are really great guitar players. But at that point, they weren't with the group, and she laid heavily on guitar. She liked guitar, so she was trying different people, but I wasn't the one. But like you said, it didn't discourage me. What it did, it made me go back and evaluate myself as a musician and say, I need to dig in. So I went back and got in my room. I got records from everybody, and I began to practice. I didn't do anything. I slept with my instrument. I gave up football. I gave up dating girls and all of that stuff. My whole focus was my music.
Wow.
And being able to perform at a level where I would be able to do this thing as a professional. I didn't care about anything other than my music. Even my education went lacking because I didn't want to do anything but play my guitar.
Wow.
And my parents told me, I said, okay, if you don't do well in school, then we're taking away your guitar. So that's the way I would go ahead and do what I was supposed to do in school.
So still in high school.
I'm still in high school.
This is like your senior year coming up though, right?
Well, I was close to my senior year.
Okay.
Because if I can go back for a minute.
Yeah, sure.
I actually had an offer, and I didn't even know about it until I spoke to the leader of the group. But I had an offer when I was 14 to go out on tour with the Mighty Clouds of Joy.
Wow.
Yeah, but I never knew about it. What they did was they contacted a promoter in New York by the name of Big Dan, the Gospel Man.
Okay.
And he knew me, and they went through him, and he went to my mother and asked my mother if I could go out on tour with the Mighty Clouds. She said, absolutely not. He has to finish high school before he does anything. Once he finished high school, then it's up to him what he wants to do from there. But I had to finish high school.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but what I did was I started focusing more on playing guitar and understanding the instrument as a whole. Learning the ins and out of the guitar, watching ones that I admire, and actually would sit down and play with some of these guys. I had an opportunity to play with a gentleman by the name of Otis. And he was the guitar player for Isaac Hayes.
Okay.
And he would sit down with me and just teach me and tell me. And I mean, I would be at the point, and I was in tears because it was back then, they didn't care much about your feelings,
Yeah.
Either you play it or you just go.
That's it. Right.
It was no joke,
Right.
Times now is a little soft. Everybody's a little a little weaker. They can't, they would be able to take these things. But listen, back then, they would give it to you once or twice, and if you didn't get it, it was a wrap.
Yeah.
It was a wrap. So we had to learn fast. I had to learn fast, and I learned to pick up pretty quickly. And I was able to work with different people who helped me out quite a bit. And a lot of times it was musicians, not even musicians, but singers that helped me out with my playing.
Wow.
Because they would say your instrument is like a voice, and you should approach it as like a singer would approach singing, and that's why I started listening. I started listening that way.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So your mom has realized maybe a lack of maturity at 14.
Yeah.
But the talent's there.
Yeah.
The talent's still there at 16. You get another call from another legendary gospel artist. And then she wakes you up. You say, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, in essence, you, not intentionally, but we all have dropped a ball musically, if we're honest, right? And so that is a pivotal moment for you. It sounds like there was a paradigm shift. Was like, okay, I've got to sell out to this thing. So what would you say to someone who's on the fence right now? They know they're talented, to our listening audience, but they maybe haven't had that moment yet. And sometimes we have to lose to gain. What would you say to that person who's on the fence? Their talent is there, but it hasn't been confirmed by others yet.
I tell them like this, and it's not even musical. Think about Michael Jordan. When he was in middle school, going into high school, he didn't make the varsity.
Right.
But look at where he did, or the history that he created. So don't quit. Don't allow that to deter you, but make it make it where you're more empowered. Go for it. Do not quit. Never give up.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. So we graduated from high school.
After I graduated high school, I ended up going on tour. I ended up playing with a group they're based out of Milwaukee, but they were based in North Carolina. Okay. And then I guess that will segue into me telling how I ended up in North Carolina.
Of course, right. That's coming.
Yeah. But they were based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but the lead singer lived in Goldsboro, and the group is called the Supreme Angels, Slim and the Supreme Angels,
right.
And that's when I took my first real major professional tours with them.
Wow!
But what I did though, I ended up getting out of school. I played with the Supreme Angels for a few years. But I did want to continue my education. That was still important to me. So what I did was I went into the Navy. I ended up going into the Navy.
Wow.
And I ended up getting a degree in engineering in the Navy. So
wow.
I was able to get my education there. I served my country for a little while. And then after I finished that, I went back into music.
So how long were you in the Navy?
4 years.
4 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So 4 years, and then what happened with the connection with the Supreme Angels at this time?
Well, I was
during the Navy.
I was still connected to them. I didn't play with them, but I was still connected to that group. The members were friends of mine. The lead singer was still a really great friend of mine. So I was able to still keep that connection. And then while I was out with the Supreme Angels, I made connections with different artists. So, I had a pretty good reputation for being a decent guitar player. So once I came out, I still had to sharpen my skills because when I was in the Navy, my focus was not guitar.
Yeah.
Although I was able to pick it up every so often. And then I was stationed in Norfolk. So when groups like Luther Barnes and different ones would come into Norfolk, if I was available, I would go to their concert or I'll go and hang out with the musicians and I would sit back and play with some of the guys.
So you stayed plugged in. You weren't on the stage as
Yeah.
much, but you still had your guitar with you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So I was able to do it that way. And then once I got out, then I went back into doing the music,
So the Navy is providing a level of discipline that is, that's unparalleled.
Yeah.
That's somewhat extreme for discipline, right?
Yeah.
But you noticed it, so there was a seed planted as well. And this is about character development.
Exactly.
You're recognizing in the character of the leaders of these quartet groups a leadership quotient that you feel like you need in your life. Is that one of the reasons you pursued the Navy?
Absolutely. But it taught me discipline in music. It's not just character, because in music, you have to be disciplined, or else it'll be a disaster.
You can't just be a nice guy. You can be a nice guy, but you can be a nice guy and be sitting at home if you're not disciplined enough to learn the parts, play the record, etc.
Learn the parts.
Okay.
And like I said, anything with more than two heads is a monster. It is, honestly, everybody should has a role that they play.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is just like a highway, or we can use communication,
Mm-hmm.
talking.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a room full of people and everybody's talking at the same time, nobody's really being heard.
Right.
But if everybody have their time to speak, or every musician play their part, it just flows beautifully.
Right.
And one of the best lines I've heard in a movie, and I'll never forget it, is drumline. One band, one sound.
Yeah. Yeah.
One band, one sound. And if a band is playing or we're talking and we're able to talk to one another, not at one another, it's beautiful. Communication. Music is communication.
Right.
And discipline plays a huge part in that. Because if I'm in a band, I play in a band at my church. We have 2 horn players, organ, piano, bass player, and drummer.
Wow.
But if everybody is doing whatever they want and forget even that we're accompanying a singer,
Right. Right.
it's a mess.
Come on. Right.
It's a mess. But if everybody plays their role, everybody does their part. I play the guitar line. Organ player plays his pad. Main keys plays his piano.
Yeah.
Bass player holds down the bottom with the drummer. The relationship between the bass player and the drummer.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Hand in glove.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I'm sure that you came across bands who are talented individuals. You can have the dream team band,
Yeah.
but if everybody's shooting at the same time,
Right. Right.
nobody's playing defense,
Yeah.
nobody's doing anything, it's a mess.
That's not called music. That's called noise.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and that's a great point. So the discipline that it takes, we want all of our listeners to understand that the discipline that it takes to do this is not something to just kind of turn up your nose at and I got this. Just because you've got your part, there's dynamics, right? There's tone, there's tempo, there's all of these things that you are just on your part. You have to master before it can gel, as we said, hand in glove with the rest of the band. And it's actually a form, I've always thought of it as, Aretha said RESPECT, right? It's a form of respect.
It is.
When I don't play during your solo, that means I appreciate you as an artist. We're backing an artist. But in this particular moment, even in that artist show, you're now the artist.
Yeah.
You've now taken center stage. And just like we wouldn't play all over a vocal solo, we shouldn't play over your guitar solo, the drummer solo, etc.
Well, it's a role that we play as musicians.
Right.
And any great musicians will tell you that they would actually love to hear everybody's instrument in a setting. I love to hear the guitar, but I love to hear the whole band. I mean, I want to hear everybody because it becomes really musical and it feels so good.
Yeah.
That's a great feeling. And I'm sure you've came across situations where somebody may have been overplaying whatever, and you had to tell them to scale it back, or you have to scale it back.
True.
You have to be the adult or the mature person
Yeah.
and scale it back and say, okay, well, I need to lock this. This has to be locked. Because honestly, everybody does not have an ear for music, but they understand what they can hear.
Yes. Right.
The average person that's not a musician can feel something that's not right.
That's right.
They can feel
right.
it. They may not be able to put their finger on it, but they can feel that something's not right.
Yeah.
The most disciplined band that I've ever heard in my life was James Brown.
Oh yeah, yeah. When you said one band, one sound, I thought about James Brown. Or what did you say? Was it one note, one sound, or was it
one band?
Yeah, was Mr. Brown as
yes, sir.
Bobby Bird called.
Yes, sir.
Was one note.
One note.
He said one note. It doesn't get more simple than one note.
But look at what he did. He had 2 drummers, maybe 2 or 3 guitar players, bass player, but they were locked. The horn section, they were locked because everybody played a role.
Yes, sir.
Somebody just went chick on the guitar. Other person was doing something else.
Yeah.
But it all worked together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Undisciplined musicians couldn't have played for James Brown. One of the most legendary band leaders of all time. Songwriters, entertainers, hands down. Businessmen.
Yeah.
But the discipline that it took to be able to play with him was second to none. You would have needed to have gone through the Navy to be
But
able to
see,
do that.
that's the thing. Even that, so that ties back to what I was saying. I wanted that discipline
Mm-hmm.
because you had a company command. It was a chain of command
There you go.
in the
There you go.
military.
Yeah.
So you had to do this.
Yeah. My
And,
dad's gonna like this conversation. By the way, he's a
okay.
retired first sergeant from the National Guard.
Well,
So.
well, I can tell it through you. I can tell it through
the
you.
fruit, right?
Yeah, the
Right.
fruit,
There
the
you
fruit.
go. Yeah.
You know, so everybody had a part to play. We had to do this. There was a team leader. There's a company commander.
Mm-hmm.
There's a chief, a senior chief.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Lieutenant.
Mm-hmm.
The XO. Before you got to the captain, you had to go through the executive officers.
There we go.
So it played a role.
Yeah.
So what it did was it taught me that I had a role to play in music.
Mm.
It just goes right back to that.
That's powerful.
So a lot of people say, man, I see you playing and I know that you can do more. Yeah, I could do more, but it doesn't call for more.
Mm-hmm.
The signature lines are the things that stand out.
Yeah.
Those things that people really don't really understand,
Right.
but they can hear it or they can feel it.
Yeah.
Those are the things.
And sometimes you made a great point just now. Where sometimes we underestimate the consumer's intelligence.
Yeah.
We are literally sensitized as a culture to excellence in music.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Your son is a movie producer, director.
Yes.
He scores and works with music supervisors to find the perfect song, the perfect sound, the perfect tone for this scene.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to go out on the silver screen, and everybody's going to see and hear the emotion that he wanted the lines to produce.
Exactly.
We don't know anything really but great music.
Mm-hmm.
The average consumer.
Yeah.
But we can tell when it's off,
We can tell when it's off.
even without the ability to play it.
Exactly.
So it behooves musicians, to work with the discipline that it takes to produce the level of excellence that is really just normal, commonplace business. Business as usual, right? We're not buying spoiled milk from the grocery store.
You are preaching to the
Right.
choir. Yes,
That's
sir.
what we want. We expect to go into the grocery store and see at least 1-2 weeks out
Yeah.
from the date on the.
Exactly.
That's what we want in music, right?
Exactly.
Man.
And I say this to any musician that's out there. I know that we love each other as musicians, but love the artists and your audience more.
Wow.
Because those are the people that's paying the ticket for the
Paying.
tickets.
Right.
They are the ones that are supporting us. So please love your musician friends. It's good to have them on the side of the stage saying wow, but it's better to have that grandma, if you're playing in church, to be able to feel that thing,
Mhm.
or the young person out there who can't play
Right.
to really feel your music instead of having someone who's not going to pay
Yeah.
for it
Yeah.
to say wow.
Mhm.
And that's
That's it.
big.
Yeah. The consumer creates the need for the stage.
Oh, absolutely.
Without them buying the products that we create, there's a relationship. There's that respected give and take.
Absolutely.
We give of our gifts,
Yeah.
and they receive that. But in the process of them taking, there's remuneration, there's money exchange, and that's how we continue to do what we do as an industry. So it's definitely all about discipline and respect. That's a great point, Kevin.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So Kevin, who are some of your mentors? You are a mentor to many, but looking back, you're now, this is post Navy, we're 20, maybe early 20s now, going out into the real world.
Yeah.
Who were some of your mentors then, and who are some of your mentors now?
Okay. Back then, there was one person that stands out, and they call him Spanky, but it's Eddie Alford,
Yeah.
and he was a amazing guitar player who would sit down with me and tell me the truth. He wouldn't sugarcoat things. He would tell me the truth, and he was doing phenomenal things back then. And up until the time he passed away, he was doing some great things. He's worked with John Mayer. He did all the D'Angelo and all the Tony,
Yeah.
Eric Benet. He did some of everybody. He worked on all different circuits. He did quartet and all that stuff. But he was one of my mentors.
Yeah.
There was another gentleman who didn't play guitar. His name was Charles Cook. He took me under his wing when I was very young.
Okay.
And when my family or my parents wasn't able to take me to different things, he would take me to gospel concerts and all that stuff. And then he would actually pay musicians to sit down and play with me and teach me different things.
Really? He would
Yeah,
pay
he would pay them.
musicians?
He would pay them. I would actually stay at his house. People thought I was his son because I
Wow.
was with him so much. But I would stay at his house and he would make me I had my own room. He made me sit in the room and listen to everybody's music. He wanted me to learn everybody's music and said,
He just saw something in you? Like this
he,
is someone from the community who has heard you play?
well,
And
he was a singer too.
okay.
He was a singer too. But he took me under his wing because he felt like I had something. And he took me into his house. He gave me a room. He would have records of everybody. And then he would pay different musicians in the area to come and sit down and teach me different things.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, he would take me to
Wow.
concerts and whatnot. The first time I performed at the Audubon Ballroom was with his group, you know. And the
Yeah.
Audubon is famous for where Malcolm X was murdered at. So I was able to perform at different places, and he would absolutely make sure that I would get what I needed musically. So he was one of my mentors that actually didn't even play guitar,
Wow.
but he was one of my mentors. And then there was others like Al Dent, another quartet legend guitar player, Sugar Hightower, another great guitar player.
My favorite guitar
Yeah.
player.
Oh, that's now we're gonna have to talk about Sugar. And actually, that leads into why I started the summit was because of Sugar Hightower. It was so many great guitar players. Howard Carroll of the Dixie Hummingbirds,
Okay.
another phenomenal guitar player that I learned so much from. But in New York, we were infested with great musicians.
Unbelievable.
It was unreal. Every corner, there was great musicians everywhere. You could go to the subway.
You can go, yeah, the subway.
And
Yeah,
you-
I used to live
yeah,
in Brooklyn, so
yeah.
I mean, I know this firsthand.
Yeah.
You're gonna see some of the best entertainment that money can't buy. Sometimes
Exact-
money won't buy,
Won't buy.
but just like will blow your mind.
Listen, I played with this guy when I was coming up. He was a drummer. But some years later, I was watching something on the news or in a movie, and I seen him. And they called him Pots and Pans, a guy who just stood
Yeah, yeah.
out in, I think he was out in Central Park, and he would just play pots and pans, but he was a killer drummer. You know what I'm saying? So coming out of New York, there was so many great musicians that I learned from,
Yeah.
and they not only taught me music, but they taught me how to respect other people.
Right.
You know,
Right.
sometimes we get into a habit of looking down on musicians because they're not at a certain level.
Right.
And I learned at an early age you should not do that.
That's
You
correct.
cannot do that.
Right.
You know, I teach now. I have a bunch of students that I teach now, but I tell my students all the time that I may be teaching you, but I'm learning from you as well.
Right.
Because everybody has something to offer.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so and when you get to the point where you feel like you can't learn from anyone else, then you might as well shut it down.
It's a wrap. Right.
You need to shut it down. So, but like I said, I had a bunch of different mentors that I looked up to, and like I said, Spanky was one of one of my biggest influences.
So when you got your first check, you're making a living as a musician. You're no longer in the Navy. Are we working and playing gigs on the side? Are you a full-time musician now and music is literally paying the bills? Tell me where we are at this stage, post-Navy.
Post Navy, it was all music.
All music.
One year when I was working with Gospel Keynotes,
Okay.
we had 270 dates in 1 year.
270 dates.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were working during the week. Well, artists don't work during the week, but at that time we would work during the week. We would leave home on a Tuesday, and I would get back home like on a Monday, you know. And we would have dates. We would maybe miss like a Thursday or something, but that week we would be working, and we would go from anywhere from from New York to Missoula, Montana, or wherever.
And how are we traveling? Are we traveling by van, by bus, by
Tour
plane?
bus. With the
Okay.
Keynotes was tour bus. With the Supreme Angels, they had a tour bus. When I was with Willie Banks, he didn't want a bus. He wanted a van. So he had the van and trailer, matching trailer. Yeah. So,
Okay.
and with the Mighty Clouds of Joy, it was a tour bus.
Wow. Wow.
Hmm.
So there's an etiquette that comes with that. We won't get into all of that right now, but
Hmm.
in order for you to be a touring musician, one of my questions for you is what does that take that is not musical? It goes without saying you need to be good enough. You got those calls because you were good enough, but you can get out on the road and be sent back home.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
talk to our listeners a little bit about what you learned about touring etiquette.
Well, number one is punctuality.
Hmm.
That's number one. You don't want to be the last person, or you don't want to be late.
Hmm.
The other thing is hygiene, because that plays a part. Because nobody wants to be on the bus with a stinky.
Oh my goodness.
So hygiene plays a part. Being able to get along with people.
Hmm.
You have to be, you have to be a likable person. You know, you don't want to be on the person that nobody wants to be around.
Yeah.
Because there's the thing that you can get into a gig, but keeping that gig,
Yeah.
keeping that
We
tour,
got to talk about how to keep them.
you
Right.
got to, you have to be able to keep them
Mhm.
doing your job. You know, just doing your job. You know, that's big.
Yeah.
You know,
Because a tour bus is basically a mobile home.
It
That's
is.
what it is. You know, people have them as private coaches
Yeah.
themselves, but you're literally living on a bus with sometimes 12, some sleep as many as 14 plus.
yeah,
That's a lot of different people, a lot of different personalities, and a lot of different etiquette needs, right?
exactly, exactly,
Not to mention the driver.
exactly. You have people that's in the group. You have a driver, and then you had tech people.
Hmm.
We had, when I was with the Clouds, we had a guy that traveled with us that handled our road needs. So you have all these people on the bus, and you have to respect them and respect their abilities. And not look down on this one or that one, because everybody, like we talked earlier, everybody plays a role, everybody plays a part. And because you're not on stage, that doesn't mean you're not important.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah.
that's important. So being able to get along with people, and being punctual and doing your job, and that will keep your job. That will keep you out there.
Yeah. So 270 dates. That's a serious tour,
Yeah.
right? With the Gospel Keynotes, another legendary gospel group.
Yeah.
So at this point, you're getting paid. You're not doing this for free.
Yeah.
So it's clicked for you that not only can I make money from it,
Hmm.
but has it clicked for you that you could make a very sizable income from doing this?
You can.
Okay.
And back at that time, I was really young. So I was learning about managing money and all of that stuff. And so I didn't handle it well,
Hmm.
when I first come out. And I'm not going to say this about everyone, but back in the day, our parents didn't teach us about finances and how to save, and stocks and all that stuff, and 401ks, and putting back for a rainy day.
Yeah.
A lot of people just didn't do that.
Yeah.
And I had to learn the hard way
Yeah.
that you need to put some money back. So I made some money, but I spent a lot of money.
And how much money we go here on Musically Hits, because this is your past. We know you
Okay.
make probably a little bit more than you used to make when you were
Yeah,
22, right?
yeah.
But can you remember what you got paid in those dollars? Because we're talking this is the 80s,
Yeah.
90s.
Yeah.
We're talking about now. What was the going rate for a guitarist with a legendary group like that back
Well,
then?
I think with the Mighty Clouds of Joy, I think I was making like $750 a week.
A week?
Yeah,
So you
something.
weren't paid per show.
No.
You were paid. Was it by the day or was it
By the week. By the
Okay.
week. So if they did 4 shows in a week, it didn't matter. My salary it's just like working a
Didn't matter.
9 to 5.
Right.
at the end of the week I was getting like I think it was like 750 or something like that.
And that was pretty good for 19.
Yeah,
This was,
yeah, yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
let's just pick a year, 85,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that was
So,
decent,
hmm
But with different artists, like with the Supreme Angels or Willie Banks or the Keynotes, I was getting paid by the concert,
okay.
and it really depend on how they booked it.
hmm
If they asked for say $3,500 or something like that, you got to think about splitting it up among
How many people are we talking
who right.
splitting right here?
Well, I'm not really sure.
Oh,
I can't remember how many people was in the group, but I would come home or get maybe like 250
hmm
for the show or something like that. Or if it was a bad night, I would get maybe $125, something like that.
hmm
But you got to remember, and if I would have thought like I'm thinking now, if I saved that money, because I wasn't paying for hotel,
Right,
I wasn't paying for
right.
any travel, anything like that.
There you go.
You could just take that money and put it back and save it,
hmm
and that's a lot of money
Right.
back then. So but there were bad days. Got to tell you,
hmm
yeah. One day I did a tour with one of the groups, and I think that it was around Christmas, and I had a family, I had a daughter and whatnot, and I think I got paid $23 at the last show.
Oh, wow.
It was horrible,
hmm
but with a family, how do you go home and say, hey, this is what I made?
Right.
And I guess we'll get into maybe talking about the effects of being on tour
hmm
in a family life,
hmm
because that's another thing that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
how has being, I don't, what age did you become a dad for the first time? When did you have your first child? How old were
I want to say 25.
you?
I think I was 25 or 24.
Okay. And how many kids do you have?
I have two.
Two.
I have a daughter and a son.
So what did that do for you I always ask guys that I know or ladies that are mothers, how did becoming a parent and music, because now you're musically hitched already, but now you got another hitching scenario going on here. You got kids that are yours for the rest of your life.
Let me tell you something, Zach. Just being honestly, I was a horrible dad.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
horrible.
All right.
Just being straight, because I put music before everything.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
Music was my life.
hmm
And I didn't dedicate the time that I needed with my kids. And that's why I say that being a touring musician,
hmm
you have to have a great support, but you also have to be a support,
Right. Right.
because that will affect your life in a negative way,
hmm
because being out there on that road, it can poison you,
Yeah.
honestly,
Right.
because you have a false sense of importance.
Mm.
You think, and I tell my students this, you think that you're the most important thing in the world. You think when you're on that stage and these people are calling your name, I would walk up to the stage and I could hear people whisper, that's Kevin Wilson.
hmm
That's Kevin Wilson.
And you're not even the star.
I'm not the
You're on the
star.
back line.
I'm
Right.
the musician. I can hear that's Kevin Wilson. That's Kevin Wilson.
hmm
This artist getting ready to come. That's their guitar player.
Right.
And that stuff gets in your head, and
hmm
it'll start to mess with you, making you thinking that you're more than what you actually
Wow.
are.
hmm
But what I tell my students, and I tell young musicians, I tell you what, if you think that you're that great and you're that important, and all these people are screaming your name, I said, you go to Minnesota to the Mall of America and just walk around and see how many people know who you are.
hmm
They won't have a clue.
Right.
They don't know who you are. They really don't.
They don't.
You
They
know,
don't.
they know who that main artist is.
hmm
And as long as you tied to that artist and they see your name on a credit, or they'll see your name on an album or whatever,
hmm
or the graphics, they'll know who you are. But you're not that important.
Right. And the small, I mean, we're talking about, we're talking to musicians. We've got all kinds of listeners with various backgrounds, but
Hmm.
that is a really, really small group of people that actually know the names of the musicians. So it is a very false sense of security, importance for you to think that just because you heard someone say your name, I mean, I appreciate that person
Yeah.
that pays attention to the bass or the guitar, the drums or whatever, or the the cowbell
Yeah.
enough to know who that is. But you're only there for the artist, and that artist can change their mind.
and a quickness.
In a quickness, and that's another part of that etiquette piece, right? Where if you become bigger in your mind than the
Yeah.
artist that hired you, you're in for disaster.
Perfect example. Look what happened with Usher's entire band.
Mm.
He, at a minute's notice, decided to change
Mm-hmm.
and went a different direction. And you can't get mad with him
Right.
because you have to look at your demographic. And honestly, at my age, I'll be 60 in September. Okay, at my age, the Justin Biebers don't need an old man on
Right.
guitar.
Yeah. Right.
So people like Usher and different ones, they want to cater to their demographic. They want those young people.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to, even though he's maybe a little older, but if he have that young people behind him,
Yeah.
and that even goes for now, how musicians are being hired. It's not just your playing ability.
Yeah. Image.
It's your image.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be 300 pounds on stage with with those bands. You can't do it. They're not. They honestly not going to hire you,
Mm-hmm.
not because you can't play. And I'm going to tell you an example, and I'm not going to tell you who it was, but it was a drummer, great drummer, who went to audition for a world-renowned artist. The artist said, "I love everything about you, everything. But you have gray hair, so I can't hire you."
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's not always your talent, it's everything.
Yeah.
Your look, your weight.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend just a few months ago got an offer to play with a humongous artist. They said, if you can get down to a certain weight, then we'll hire you.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't do it.
So are you telling me and everyone listening that if you really want, if you have your eyes on a certain post, certain opportunity,
Yeah.
certain artist that you want to perform with, whether you're a background singer, musician, if you're going to be on stage backing this artist, supporting them, is it a good idea to pay attention to the aesthetic around the artist
Absolutely. That's
and
mandatory.
begin to mold your image into that so that when they see you, they see themselves?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Honestly. I tell you what, and I challenge anyone who's listening or who's watching to look around at the artists today and look at their surrounding, look at their band,
Mm-hmm.
look at their background vocals, look at everybody that's a part of that community, and see what you see. There's a look
Yeah.
that is involved, because honestly, and whether we want to believe it or not, we are attracted by a look.
Yeah, we are.
We are attracted by a look. So you can't get mad with these artists, but just know if you don't fit the bill,
Mm-hmm.
you won't get the gig. But also understand this. There are other things that you can do other than being on that tour bus. There's so much more music out there. Music's everywhere.
Yeah.
Music is everywhere. Commercials, jingles, movie scoring. I mean, music is everywhere. Just look at the commercial. If you want to make a decent living, you can go to a commercial. Find a commercial that don't have music.
Mm-hmm.
Create a music score for that company, and give it to them.
Yeah. Major tip right there.
There
That's
it
a
is.
very valuable tip.
Yeah.
Because everything that's associated with music, there's a job behind it. There's somebody doing something. So you may be I might be a horrible guitar player. If it comes down to guitar, me and you, I'm not getting the gig. But the tour that you go out on needs a road manager. And my wife is a mean road manager, man. We don't ever go anywhere and we don't have anywhere to stay. There's always something to eat.
Yeah.
The riders always advance. People talk about the customer service, and that literally keeps those great musicians, those talented musicians, great singers working. Someone that you don't even see.
Let me tell you something. some of the best guitar techs will bury the average guitar player.
Yeah, right. Because
But
why? Tell them why. Why is a tech your worst nightmare if they start sound checking before you get there?
you better not let them. But you know what? They're there to serve a purpose.
Yes.
They're there to serve a purpose.
Right.
One a guy that used to tech for me, he did. I mean, he was a classically trained musician, and I said, if you ever play around the artist, I'm done with you. I'm completely.
You're fine. Right?
You fine. You are done. But yeah, so it's there. It's, there's work out there for everybody. And then my thing now is I'll still go out and do different things. I'll go out with different artists and whatnot. But my thing now is I'll record more than I love recording. I absolutely love recording. I can stay right at home. I can take my time and do what I need to do,
Right.
and lay down music all day and all night. Because a lot of times those guys that you see on stage aren't the guys that's tracking the music.
Right. Right. Very true.
You know,
Very true.
there's a big difference between live performance and recording. Recording don't lie.
3 biggest differences between live and studio. Why are some people only right for the studio versus the stage?
Because when you record, one, you have to be precise. Okay, especially if you're going into someone's studios, because time is money.
Yes.
Okay, you got to be quick. You have to be able to read music. In some instances,
Some cases, right?
Yeah, in some cases you need to be able to read music. And on the flip side, some people are just emotional and they can perform. They can move you, singing or playing, but they just can't do it in the studio.
Right.
It's just not. It's not there for them. So I say, I don't know. I guess just live is just, to me, is more emotional. And you have to be able to do it.
Yeah.
But when you're recording, it's so precise. And then, if you go in the studio and you can't get it after the first or the second take, most of the time they bring in someone else in.
Exactly. Right. Because time is money, and we're here to make this. This is not a time to improvise.
Yeah.
This is a time to nail it, have it down, and let's get in and get out. Because there's more music to record and more songs to get through, and that's just. In your day, and even to this day, people should really know a song well enough to play it straight through. See, there was no punching. You
No
had to cut
punching.
tape, right? We both telling age now, right? Yeah, you didn't even know what that means, right? But you had to play it straight through from intro to outro.
Real to real.
Yeah, real to real.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's powerful stuff. So at the end of the day, you need to. What we're saying is know your place.
No,
If you,
absolutely.
it's okay if you're studio, and there are some people that are live that if they develop the discipline to do both, because you do both, you play live and do studio. There's also the investment quote, because like you've got to make the investment in yourself in terms of not just the gear, the Pro Tools, the Logic, the right mics, etc., but you've also got to take the time to learn it properly. And then you got back to punctuality again. You've got to be able to deliver files clean, quickly, promptly, so that people can then pop them right into a mix session and go.
I did a session for this young man out of Atlanta, and I'm telling you something.
I don't know him, do I? He shall remain nameless.
I did a session for him, and my biggest thing, I said, man, I got to make sure that this stuff is right. But with me, when I track for the average person as hard as I do the major artists, with any major artist.
That's true. I know that about you, personal experience. I
try hard because, number one, you want to do right by everybody. And then number two, even if the track is garbage, you never know who's listening.
You don't. That's right.
You never, ever know who will hear it.
You may not like it.
Yeah.
It may not be your cup of tea, but you don't know where that track is going to end up and whose ears are going to hear it.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So, I try to do my best for everybody. So even if I get a call from a Stevie Wonder or whomever, I'm going to track as hard for that Jim Jones or Johnny Jones or whoever as much as I will that Stevie Wonder artist or record or whatever.
So at this point, Kevin, you're a full-time musician. You have mentored hundreds, maybe thousands of musicians. Some you probably won't even meet.
Right.
People know your name, and there is a brand.
Sure.
Kevin Wilson is more than just a name; it's a brand. At this point in your career, you started something that the world now knows as the International Musician Summit.
Yes, sir.
But before that, I remember it was the Guitar Summit.
Yes, sir.
Why did you start it? And then why did you ultimately have to change the name?
And we talked about this person earlier. It was Sugar Hightower.
Okay.
Great, one of my mentors, great musician. We became really close because we actually worked together with the Supreme Angels, and we just became the best of friends. And unfortunately, he got cancer, and this goes back to taking care of your business and having health insurance and stuff like that. But in quartet, a lot of the musicians and a lot of people in quartet didn't have any life insurance or health insurance or anything like that. So when Sugar got sick and he didn't have any money to really cover his medical expenses, I decided to do a benefit concert. So I called some of my friends like Jonathan Dubose, Ron Meadows. I called Tyrone Jackson, Tyrone Chase, a lot of different guitar players. And then I contacted Luther Barnes and some groups. And what I did was I put on a benefit at my church, the Upper Room Church of God in Christ here in Raleigh. And we came together and we raised a bunch of money to help Sugar with his medical expenses.
Fantastic.
Right. So what happened after that, someone called me and said, hey, that was amazing what you did. Would you consider doing something like that? Because I learned a lot just being around.
Wow.
Would you consider doing something like that? Bringing musicians together. I said, wow. I said, I never thought about it. I said, but let me see what we can do. So I contacted a friend. I used to shop at a place called Indoor Storm, and they had a gentleman sales guy in there by the name of Eddie Berman. And I talked to him. I said, Eddie, I want to put together a event and bring some guitar players and whatnot, together so we can kind of share some music, educate each other. He said, well, that'd be great. So what we did was the place only sat probably about 25, 35 people. So I called Eric Walls, I called Tyrone Jackson again, and a few other of my friends came together, and we went to the store and we just, started playing and sharing, right there in the store, and everybody was so blown away. It was, like I said, about 25 people, and people began to hear about it and said, well, we got to do that again. So that's started the Guitar Summit. Okay. After doing it for 2 years back to back, it started to take on a mind of its own, and I brought in the guitar players. I brought in a gentleman out of Nashville called, his name is Andy Reese. He played with a bunch of country, Loretta Lynn and all of those people. And then I brought in a pedal steel player by the name of Travis Toy, and he's on tour with Rascal Flatts. He plays pedal steel with Rascal Flatts.
Nice.
And then I brought in Andy Woods, is another country player, bunch of different guitar players and whatnot, and we just started to have some fun. But then I said, okay, we have the opportunity to play together, but we need to educate as well.
Right.
And then I started getting calls from bass players and drummers saying, what about us?
Right.
What about us? And I was talking to Jonathan Dubose because he was part of the event. And he says, you know what, Dr. Wilson? This way, Dr. Wilson.
Yeah.
Dr. Wilson, you know what you need to do? I said, what, Jonathan? He said, you know what? You're international now. He said, because I was bringing people from all over the world that was actually coming. We had people coming from as far as China to come into the Guitar Summit.
Wow.
And so he said, you're international. You're international. And when he said international, I said, wow.
Yeah.
And then, I talked to Andrew Goucher. I talked with the musicians out of West Angeles, the Noble Brothers. I talked with Cassandra O'Neill, keyboard player. Matter of fact, me and Cassandra's daughter, because Cassandra's from, not her daughter, but me and Cassandra's sister went to the prom together because Cassandra's
Really?
from New York. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was out with Prince and all those
Oh
people.
yeah.
So I called her and she came and brought in some great Calvin Rogers and Jeremy Haynes, who's at Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy came and had Rick Wofford and Joey Wofford, and I mean, then it just Eric
Yeah.
Gales.
These are just some major names right here. These are
And
a
then,
who's who.
yeah,
of
the
musicians.
who's who, and
Yeah.
then Paul Jackson Jr., Doc Powell, Isaiah Sharkey.
Yeah.
All these
Do
guys.
your homework. If you don't know these
Yeah.
names, make sure you do your homework.
If you may not know him, but I promise you
You've
heard.
heard them.
Paul Jackson is one of the most recorded guitar players in the history of music,
All time. Right.
all time, and one of my best friends.
Awesome.
One of my best buddies. Doc Powell, one of my greatest friends. He was in my wedding,
Mm-hmm.
but those guys started coming,
Yeah.
and it just blew up, man. And then I had the Potter's House Band, Jabari Johnson, even had Kenny Lennox's wife, Tasha.
Mm-hmm.
Tasha Lennox.
Cobb Lennox.
Yeah, Tasha Cobb Lennox came, and we had what is that? Two Live Crew. What's that rapper?
Uncle Luke.
Yeah, those guys. They came through.
That's great. That's great.
Different.
Yeah.
And so we had some of everybody. So then after hearing Jonathan say international, I said, you know what? He's right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I came up with the name, the International Musicians Summit.
Thank you, Jonathan Dubose.
Yes, Jonathan.
That confirmation we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't see it. You're already doing it,
Yeah.
but other people see it and they confirm it, and then it's like, okay, wow, I needed to hear that so that I could act on it, and that's great.
But you know what's crazy though? What's crazy is people know me for the International Summit, and they don't even know that I play guitar.
Isn't that great though?
It is.
That's amazing.
I went to Dallas. I was in Dallas, and I was in a music store, and a gentleman walked up to me. He said, "You're the guy from the International Musicians Summit." I said, "Yeah, I had something to do with that."
Uh-huh.
But you know what? I have great support. I can't just leave out. It's just all about me. But
Mm-hmm.
if it wasn't for the connection with Jonathan Dubose,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have connected with Paul Jackson
Yeah.
or Doc Powell, because he actually stood for me,
Mm-hmm.
and he would tell different people about the summit.
Yeah.
So, and then once I connected with Doc, I was connected to the director of Babyface. His name was Michael Rapole. He's no longer with Babyface, but I was connected with him, and Fitzgerald McGill connected me with people, and then companies started getting involved. McPherson Guitar and different, Sam Ash was part, sponsors and whatnot. So, networking and relationships with different people means everything.
Yeah. That was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. Just your view on how networking has impacted your life holistically. Music is one part, but we'll come back to this in a second. But how has just networking in general helped you to advance as a person?
Let me tell you something. Networking is everything, honestly, because as we spoke, my foundation was quartet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's only a small portion of the industry.
Right.
So without the networking of connecting with the Paul Jacksons and Doc Powells and different ones, people would not know who I was.
Right.
They would have no clue. I had a friend who connected me with John B, because I did work with John B. My best friend in New York, his name is Brian LaRota, was the manager for Stevie Wonder.
Okay.
So all of these are connection. This is a networking.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Walls is connected to Beyoncé. He helped write her project and produce her project. Eric Walls worked with different musicians, and I'm telling you, every time Eric would speak and people would ask him about his playing, he would always refer back to me as being his mentor.
Wow.
Because I was one of his teachers. I think Eric was 12 or 13 when I started teaching him guitar.
Oh wow. Okay.
So he would always refer back to Kevin Wilson, and recently when I told him that I was going to start teaching, he actually made a video clip and posted it, and it went crazy. And then
Fantastic.
it started getting people calling me from everywhere. But I tell them immediately, don't think because I taught Eric that you're going to end up playing like Eric. That may not happen.
Eric put in his 10,000 hours a long time ago, right?
Listen.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. But so networking is, that's the whole ball game. I have a friend named Antone Porter. He was he's still a guitar player with the Canton Spirituals. But he did a session with Darwin Hobbs. He recorded a session with Darwin Hobbs. Fred Hammond heard the session, fell in love with his guitar playing. Now he's playing with Fred Hammond. He did Fred just did a live recording or some stuff, and he's all over Fred's project.
Yeah.
So relationships are everything. Yeah. Even going back to the summit, during the time Eric Walls was working with Beyoncé was actually looking for an all-female band. A young lady that I invited to the summit, she was living, I think, in Boston. She was going to Berkeley. Her name was Francesca Simone, was there, and she didn't want to play. But I told her, I said, I want you to play because you have a gift, and I want you to share it with our attendees.
Right.
So she got up and she played Giant Steps. We had the house band, and she played Giant Steps. Eric Walls heard her. He loved her playing. Connected her with Beyoncé, and she was out on tour with Beyoncé for the longest.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you just never know. Like when you meet people, we've talked about this on other episodes, how important it is to leave well. Music makes us transition. Music is full of transitions itself.
Yeah.
But the life of a musician is in transit. We're not always going to be stationary, and in some cases, the more successful you are, the more you move around, the more calls you're going to get, and the more opportunities you're going to get. But there comes a time where you have to transition, and that's where the value and the premium that you put on relationships is on full display.
Yes, sir.
Because just because you got a call to play with this group doesn't mean that the group that you are with now is going to fold, is going to they may end up surpassing after you leave. Exactly. They may end up surpassing the artist that you're going to. You don't know what's in store for your future. We just hope and always pray for the best.
Yeah.
But talk to our listeners about how to maintain relationships even after you feel it's best for you to move on.
Just staying in contact. There's often times where different people will come to mind, and I'll call them, I'll text them, or reach out on Facebook or whatever, or social media, and just stay in contact with people.
Right.
Or even just going by and seeing them. If you know that they're performing somewhere, just go and support.
Yeah.
Or if they do a project, support their project.
Right.
Buy the project.
Right.
Musicians are notorious for not buying, people's music.
Yeah.
But we should do that because it's supporting that artist.
Right.
So just, staying in contact with these people, talking with them, checking on them,
Right.
Because you never know. And if they are short or if they need a musician, they know that they can call on you.
Exactly.
And you go and do your best, do what you do.
And we have had this personal experience, several times now.
Oh, absolutely.
But I honestly can't think of anyone better to call if I needed a guitar player. You are an extremely resourceful person. And just to think, going back to even Pastor Shirley Caesar, the people that talked to you and spoke life into you, even if it was a form of correction, they didn't even know at that time that they were talking to the future founder of the International Musicians Summit. If those same legends found themselves in a bind today, they could do the same thing they did 30 plus years ago and call your line, and you got an answer for them on guitar.
I'm telling you, it's happened so many times.
Amazing.
So many times. And you cannot believe the calls that I get. Not just for guitar players. I got a call maybe about 6 years ago. Someone called me and said, Sheila E. is coming to town. She needs a keyboard player.
Right.
Who would you call? Who would you pick? I said, it was only one person come to mind. That's Bertrand Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
So I told her, I said, call Bertrand.
Another Raleigh, North Carolina, or North Carolina guy. I don't know if Bertrand is originally
Yeah,
from Raleigh,
yeah,
but
he's a Raleigh. He's
makes
a
his
Raleigh.
home here
Yeah,
as well.
he's a Raleigh
Yeah.
guy. So I called Bert. I said, Bert, somebody's getting ready to call you. Sheila's coming in. She needs somebody to fill in. Her keyboard player's not going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, the band that I was playing with is on the same show. He's playing with the same band. We're in the same band, so we're both on the same show with Sheila.
Okay.
So we do our sound check. It's at Red Hat Amphitheater.
Mm-hmm.
We do our sound check, and the artist happened to be Yolanda Rabin, and I still work with Yolanda.
Okay.
Red Hat Amphitheater. So we go in, we do our sound check. Sheila comes in. She don't know Bert, never heard him play. They sent him the music and just prayed that he would be able to handle it. He gets on stage and they started sound checking. She looks back at him because we were all out there watching. She looks back at him and then looks at her MD and said, whatever we're paying him, it's not enough.
Wow. In sound check.
In sound check.
First time she's heard him play any of the music.
Any of the music. Don't know him from nobody. Bertrand is a great keyboard player, well known in our area, but not known in that outside.
Until this moment.
Until that moment. Until that moment. And she said, whatever we paying him, it's not enough. It's not enough. That Monday, because that Monday, he was to start a secular job. That Monday, they called him and said, we're sending you the tour dates.
Wow. Wow.
Networking. And I get calls like you all the time for musicians, not just guitar players, bass players, drummers, keyboard players.
Right.
And it's so important that you hold a good relationship and you do exactly what you say you're going to do.
That's right.
You know, my thing is I'm really particular who I refer because that's on me.
Right.
That's absolutely on me. So if I say, Zach, I got a guy for you, I need to know for sure that that person is not just going to be a good player, but he's going to learn the music. He's going to be punctual.
Right.
He's going to follow directions. He's going to do everything that he needs to do to make sure that that gig is taken care of.
Right.
You know.
Right. And I vouch for you with that. It has to be everything you need. It's not just the music. It's got to be all those other things. When we talked about tour etiquette, when we talked about discipline, we talked about punctuality. It's all of those things.
Absolutely.
That would cause someone to either go up, as you say on your list, or go down.
Oh, absolutely.
On the list.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Legacy, whether we want to or not, we're going to leave one, right? What do you, Kevin Wilson, at this stage of your life, want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as the musician who cared about our next generation and have them to understand it didn't start with me. It didn't start with what you can see. It started way before us, even before me, even before the Paul Jackson. There was Wes Montgomery and Joe Paz and those people, you know, and you talk about rock, you talk about Jimi Hendrix, you talk about different ones. It didn't start with us.
Right.
Remember the foundation where it came from, you know, and sadly to say, you know, when years come, it gets watered down because we forget. But there's somebody has to keep that legacy alive. And I want to be known as a person who cared about the generations to come, my grandchildren, because I have 4, my grandchildren, you know, and their children, to understand that we have to be, you know, good to other folks and let them know that we love them.
Right.
And it's important that we pass that on.
That's good stuff. Very good stuff. What are you working on now? What can the world expect from Kevin Wilson? I know it's a loaded question. We've only got time for one episode right now. We're about to come back and probably get the rest of it. What are you excited about? What are you looking forward to?
I've been working on a solo project for about 6 years.
Ah.
I'm my worst critic. I am. I have music that's prepared and ready to go, but I just won't release it. I don't know. I've never looked at myself as a front person, but I have had so many people request music from me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working on that.
Well, that's fantastic, man. You're gonna release this project. We already know, and our listeners are waiting for it. We are listening, and we are waiting, and we already know he's got music done. So there's no excuse.
There's other artists that I'm working with that I look forward to doing music with, but I'm really excited about life. I'm excited about what's happening here.
Oh, thank you.
Musically Hitched is,
Yes,
and
sir.
I've been asked to do other podcasts, and I absolutely turned them all down.
Wow.
But this is my very first podcast that I've ever done.
Wow.
And it's not, like I said, it's not because I wasn't asked, but it wasn't time. And when you asked me about it, I was honored to actually to move forward. And I want to thank you and your wife and your team and the gentleman here that's actually doing the taping. We appreciate the job that you're doing.
Yeah. Eric is good people.
Eric.
Dream Multimedia Group.
Listen, when I walked in the door, it was like I had known him for years already.
That's the truth.
He's a really good guy. His setup, you guys can't see the setup, but I feel like I'm doing Barbara Walters 2020 prime time.
He's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah. So, but thank you to you, and again, I say thank you so much for inviting me onto your platform.
Thank you for joining us, man. It's been our honor and our privilege as well. Where can people find you online, on social media, on the web? Where can people
Facebook. I'm on Facebook. You can look up Kevin Wilson. Officially Kevin Wilson on Instagram. I'm on TikTok and all that stuff. If you Google me, you'll be able to find. Or if you're looking for the International Musician Summit, is INGT.org.
Okay.
You'll be able to find, or you can just say Google International Musician Summit.
Well, absolutely. And if people want to find you as well for lessons, is there anything different for them to do?
No, they can go through social media, or they can email me at kwilsonguitar@gmail. kwilsonguitar@gmail. But I say this: if you're interested in taking lessons or being mentored by, because I really don't do lessons, I mentor.
Okay. There's a difference.
Yes. Right. Be serious, because I'm not. They call me Sergeant Carter, and anybody with some age know exactly who Sergeant Carter is from Goma Powell.
Right.
He's a rough one, because I'm very serious about teaching, because I want you to be able to grow. I don't want you to call me just for me to show you some licks, because I can show you the licks, but you don't know how to place them. So that's just like having a car with no direction. Okay? And that's the way it is. And I don't accept everybody, because when I started mentoring, I had like over 200 people who requested it, and I only accepted 15. Because I want to be able to dedicate that time. But if you're interested, kwilsonguitar@gmail.
Well, again, man, it's been a privilege.
Oh, my honor.
Always an honor.
My honor
to have you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Glad we got you. Your first, definitely won't be your last, but your first podcast anyway. But your contributions to the world are not to be taken lightly. We support you. We rooting for you.
Thank you.
Both in your health, as well as this project that's on the way, and all the great success that's to come for International Musician Summit.
Next podcast, I'll be able to wear that shirt there.
I've got a parting gift for you too, so we'll make sure you get your Musically Hitched.
Yes, sir. Yes,
so
sir.
You can brand it out there. Bro.
Yes, sir.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us. Again, I'm your host, Zach Reynolds Jr. This has been another fantastic episode with the one and only Kevin Wilson. You heard it here. He's a great friend, but he's an even better person, and he is someone that we all stand to learn a lot from. So please take care of yourselves, take care of your health, and continue to stay musically hitched. We'll see you right here, same time, same place, next week. Supporting this podcast is easy. Just hit the subscribe button. See you on the next episode.